What if the man destined to be King of England decided, once and for all, that his sister-in-law could no longer wear the crown's borrowed glory? What if the silent prince, the measured William, the man known for his restraint, finally broke his silence and drew a line so sharp it cut through the heart of the monarchy? Tonight, we step inside a decision that has sent shockwaves across the world. William blocking Meghan Markle from using any royal titles. For years, the world has watched the drama unfold like a slow-burning series, with every episode more dramatic than the last. We've seen Meghan walk down the aisle at Windsor, cheered on by millions, the fairy tale seemingly complete. We've watched Harry and Meghan step away, crafting a new identity across the Atlantic. We've seen interviews, documentaries, books, all chipping away at the fragile walls of Buckingham Palace. But through it all, William has been silent. The future king never lashed out, never gave in. He carried on with that carefully polished royal mask. But before we continue, please subscribe and turn on the notification bell for updates. Until now. So why here? Why now? Why this particular move? The stripping of royal titles, the very identity Meghan has clung to as her link to the monarchy. This is where our story begins. And it begins with a single truth. When William moves, he moves with purpose. Think about this. A title isn't just a name. It's not just a fancy prefix. In the royal world, a title is power. It's leverage. It's international recognition, a seal of legitimacy. Meghan Markle without the Duchess title is just Meghan Markle, former actress, tabloid fascination, Hollywood neighbor. But Meghan Markle, Duchess of Sussex, commands a different weight entirely. She is tied to the institution, tied to the monarchy, tied to history. That's why William's decision matters. It's not about ego. It's about protection of the monarchy, of the family legacy, and of the throne itself. Let's take a moment to ask the obvious question. Why would William, of all people, be the one to make this move? Why not King Charles, who currently sits on the throne? The answer lies in William's growing role. Insiders have whispered for months that Charles, cautious by nature, prefers to avoid decisive strikes against Harry and Meghan. Charles still dreams of reconciliation, still holds out hope that bridges can be repaired. But William? William has seen enough. To him, reconciliation isn't just naive, it's dangerous. Every day Meghan carries that title is a day the monarchy is, in his mind, being dragged through the mud. Picture it. Kensington Palace, late evening, the future king pacing the room, his aides silent as they watch his controlled fury boil over. For years he's played the role of the patient brother, the dutiful son, the heir who waits. But on this night, he isn't waiting anymore. The words slip out, sharp, unmistakable. She cannot use our titles. Not now. Not ever again. And just like that, the unthinkable becomes reality. But before we get lost in the decision itself, we need to understand the backdrop. This isn't just about William and Meghan. This is about years of tension, years of betrayal, years of watching an institution struggle to keep its head above water in a media storm. William, always cautious, has now become ruthless because he believes the monarchy is at stake. And here's where it gets interesting. Meghan has always insisted that titles don't define her, that she is more than her position. Remember that infamous interview where she claimed she didn't care about being called Duchess? But actions speak louder than words. From business ventures branded with royal shine to the introductions at events where the title is still quietly emphasized, Meghan knows exactly what that name carries. The contradiction is glaring, and William has called her bluff. So why now? Why not years ago, when the couple first stepped back? Why not when the Oprah interview dropped bombshells? Why not when Harry's memoir painted William in the most unflattering light possible? Because William plays a long game. He is deliberate, calculating, waiting for the moment when his actions won't look like spite, but like necessity. According to insiders, William's patience has been worn thin by one thing above all: Meghan's continued use of her royal association in public life. It's one thing to step back. It's another to walk away but still hold the crown's jewelry in your hand. This is where the stakes become clear. Imagine if Meghan, still styled as Duchess, continues to build her empire in Hollywood, in politics, in media. Every deal, every appearance, every headline carries with it the faint but powerful glow of royal legitimacy. To William, that isn't just branding, that's exploitation. and it undermines everything the monarchy stands for. He has spent his life preparing for kingship, shielding the institution from scandal, presenting an image of stability. To see it diluted by a sister-in-law he believes has turned her back on duty, that, in his mind, is intolerable. And here's the irony. William is not known as a man of sudden action. He is known as careful, reserved, sometimes even accused of being boring compared to his fiery brother Harry. Yet it's William who has now drawn the most brutal sword. That contrast is striking. It's the quiet ones you underestimate. The ones who stay silent, who watch, who wait. And then, when they finally speak, their words carry thunder. What does this mean for Meghan? For Harry? For the monarchy itself? Think about the fallout. Meghan, stripped of her duchess status, becomes a symbol of rejection by the crown. Harry, who has fought tooth and nail to preserve his wife's dignity, would see this as nothing short of war. The media, hungry for blood, would feast on every angle. And the public? Divided more than ever. Some will cheer William's decision, seeing it as long overdue. Others will cry injustice, framing Meghan as the eternal outsider cast aside by a cold institution. The battle lines are drawn, and William knows it. But let's not ignore the human side of this. This isn't just politics. This is personal. Behind palace walls, behind the marble halls and velvet curtains, this is a family torn apart. A brother who sees his sibling lost. A sister-in-law who once represented hope for a modern monarchy, now seen as a threat. And a son stepping out from his father's shadow, taking charge in ways Charles has avoided. There's pain here. There's anger. There's heartbreak. And there's no going back. You might be asking yourself right now, is William justified? Should he, as future king, have the right to erase Meghan's connection to the monarchy? Or is this an act of vengeance dressed up as duty? The answer depends on where your loyalties lie, with the institution or with the individuals caught inside it. But one thing is certain. This decision has shifted the balance of power inside the royal family forever. And here's a twist. Stripping titles isn't as straightforward as it sounds. There are procedures, legal steps, parliamentary approvals in some cases. It's not as simple as William snapping his fingers. But influence matters. And William's influence, growing by the day, is more than enough to push this forward. If Charles hesitates, William will force the matter. If Parliament stalls, William will make sure pressure builds. It's not a question of if anymore. It's a question of when. So here we are. The heir who was always painted as cautious is suddenly bold, decisive, ruthless. The woman who once dreamed of royal fairy tales now faces the nightmare of being erased from them. And the world is watching, divided, fascinated, unable to look away. But here's the real question. What tipped the scale? What moment? What event? What final straw pushed William from silence into action? Was it a private insult? A business deal branded with royal shine? A family argument no one outside those palace walls has heard of? For years, he had endured the headlines, the documentaries, the interviews where his name was dropped like poison. Meghan and Harry's narrative painted him as cold, unfeeling, even aggressive. The Oprah sit-down stung. The Netflix series rubbed salt into the wound. And Spare? Harry's memoir didn't just cross a line. It tore the line into pieces. Stories of shouting matches, accusations of William being a bully, painting him as the villain in Harry's fairy tale rebellion. William said nothing. He bore it. He swallowed the anger. He wore the crown's mask. But every man has a limit. Imagine this. William alone late at night in Kensington Palace. The grand rooms echo with silence, but inside his mind, the noise is deafening. On one side, a future throne waiting for him, demanding composure. On the other side, a brother he no longer recognizes, and a sister-in-law who has turned their family into a storyline. Duty versus blood, silence versus action, tradition versus survival. Which wins? And then, one evening, a report lands on William's desk. Not a scandal from tabloids. Not another bombshell interview. Something quieter, smaller, but deadlier. Meghan's name attached to yet another project, her title prominently displayed. Duchess of Sussex. A lifestyle brand hinted at. A speech request underwritten by her royal identity. It was subtle, polished. But to William, it was betrayal in ink. Because here's the contradiction. Meghan had insisted publicly that titles didn't matter, that she wanted freedom, independence, her own life. Yet time and again, the Duchess title appeared like a watermark across her endeavors. She had left the monarchy but carried the crown with her like a logo. To William, it wasn't just hypocrisy, it was exploitation. And this was the moment. The spark. The line crossed. You have to understand William's perspective to feel the weight of this. For him, titles aren't casual. They aren't decorative. They're sacred. They represent sacrifice, duty, centuries of history carved in stone. You don't wear them like a handbag. You don't toss them in and out of your identity when it's convenient. For William, this was not just Meghan branding herself. It was Meghan branding the monarchy, without permission. And that, he could no longer stomach. So he called his aides. No raised voice. No shouting. Just cold, sharp precision. She cannot use our titles. Not now. Not ever again. The aides froze. Some glanced at one another, wondering if they had misheard. William was not a man of ultimatums. He was the peacemaker, the heir trained to wait, to endure. But this was different. His tone left no room for doubt. And here's where the contradiction sharpens. William, often accused of being passive compared to Harry's fiery defiance, suddenly revealed the steel beneath the mask. The future king doesn't shout. He doesn't rant. He cuts. Quietly, decisively, without flinching. Now, pause and ask yourself this. Was this truly about Meghan? Or was this about something deeper, about control, about reclaiming authority in a world where Harry and Meghan had snatched the narrative? Was William really protecting the monarchy? Or was he protecting himself from becoming a side character in a story Meghan had authored? Because here's a twist many don't consider. William isn't just reacting to Meghan. He's reacting to Harry. His younger brother had always been the rebel, the emotional one, the free spirit. William, by contrast, played the role of the stable one, the heir. But when Harry left, when Harry chose Meghan over the institution, William didn't just lose a brother. He lost balance. He became the lone standard-bearer, carrying the monarchy's future alone. Stripping Meghan of her titles, in this light, wasn't just about silencing her. It was about cutting the rope tethering Harry to the family. Imagine how heavy that decision must have felt. On one side, his father, Charles, urging restraint, still hoping reconciliation was possible. On the other, the monarchy's image bleeding with every headline. And in between, William himself, wrestling with loyalty to family versus loyalty to crown. Which would you choose? Family? Or the institution that defines your destiny? This is the human contradiction at the center of it all. William is both a man and an heir, both a brother and a future king. And in this breaking point, one role consumed the other. Let's dive deeper into the psychology here. William grew up watching his mother, Diana, stripped of her HRH style after her divorce from Charles. He saw firsthand what happens when the crown decides someone no longer deserves royal privilege. He saw the humiliation, the pain, the symbolism of being cut off. That image has never left him. So when he looked at Meghan, did he see echoes of his mother's story, but inverted? Diana, who had given her life to the crown, was stripped unwillingly. Meghan, who had walked away voluntarily, still clung to the crown's jewels. To William, that must have looked like mockery. This explains why his breaking point wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was surgical. He wasn't acting out of rage. He was acting out of memory, of trauma, of a lifetime spent watching how titles can make or break reputations. And yet, here's the irony. In trying to protect the monarchy from scandal, William has created another scandal. His move against Meghan doesn't silence the story. It amplifies it. It becomes global news, fueling the very media frenzy he despises. Isn't that the cruel paradox of power? The very act of control exposes the lack of control. Think about the palace aides in that moment. They must have asked themselves, what now? Can William truly force this? Does Charles back him? Does Parliament step in? Do they risk the public backlash? Every path is treacherous. Every option comes with consequences. But William, for once, wasn't weighing options. He had decided. The future king had spoken. But let's not pretend Meghan would take this lying down. If you know her story, you know one thing. Meghan is a fighter. She doesn't retreat when challenged. She doubles down. Which means William's breaking point was only the beginning of a larger war. And that war? It starts behind closed doors. Because while the world sees polished statements and polite press releases, inside the palace the conversations are raw, sharp, unfiltered. William's demand didn't just rattle his aides. It rattled his father. It rattled the courtiers who know exactly how dangerous this path could be. To strip a duchess of her title is to declare war not just on Meghan, but on Harry. And the monarchy has never waged war on one of its own so openly in modern times. Here's where the tension skyrockets. William's breaking point isn't just a family spat. It's a constitutional question. Who has the power to strip a title? Technically, the monarch. But William's influence as heir is massive. His word can sway Charles. His word can move Parliament. His word, once spoken, can't be ignored. And that is where the danger lies. Because if Charles hesitates, if the institution drags its feet, William risks being seen as overstepping. And if Meghan fights back publicly, painting herself as the victim once again, William risks being cast as the villain, the cold-hearted future king who silenced the outsider. The stakes are not just high, they're explosive. So we're left with the image of a man standing at the edge of two worlds. The William of yesterday, patient and restrained, and the William of tomorrow, decisive and ruthless. The breaking point has been reached. The words have been spoken. The battle lines are drawn. But what came next would not stay hidden in whispers. Because behind closed doors, William's demand turned into a plan. And that plan shocked even King Charles. What really happens behind palace walls? What conversations, whispers, and veiled threats set the course for history? Tonight, we pull back the velvet curtain and step into the room where Prince William, the future king, made the decision that would forever alter Meghan Markle's royal standing. It started quietly. No cameras, no public statements, just the hum of fluorescent lights, the shuffle of papers, and the barely audible tick of a grand clock echoing through the halls of Kensington Palace. The aides knew this wasn't just another meeting. This was the moment when a quiet man would finally draw a line, and the consequences would ripple far beyond the room. The door closed, and William spoke first. Not a word wasted. Not a single hint of doubt. She cannot use any royal titles. Effective immediately. Short. Sharp. Uncompromising. And in that instant, the atmosphere shifted. Silence hung like a storm cloud. Staff exchanged nervous glances. Some had predicted this move. Others couldn't believe it had come so suddenly. One aide later described the moment as a cold, surgical strike. Precise, inevitable, terrifying. Why terrifying? Because William's words weren't just a personal declaration. They were a seismic shift in the monarchy's balance of power. It was rare for a royal heir to take such direct action, bypassing subtle negotiations and protocol. The monarchy thrives on measured steps, careful diplomacy, and tradition. William had abandoned all caution. He had spoken, and what he said could not be unspoken. But let's step back for a moment. To understand the gravity of this moment, you need to see the context. William had spent years watching his family dynamics unravel. His mother's legacy, Charles's cautious approach, Harry's rebellion, Meghan's relentless public presence, all of it compounded into a pressure cooker. Every interview, every story, every social media post that referenced the Sussexes was like another brick in the wall pressing against him. And the title issue? That was the straw that broke the camel's back. Imagine the tension in that room. Courtiers, aides, advisors, all aware that history was being made, yet powerless to intervene. William's mind was a chessboard, every move deliberate, every word calculated. The outcome had to protect the monarchy without igniting a public feud too explosive to contain. And yet, irony dripped from every corner. For decades, the palace had trained its heirs to maintain dignity in public, to handle crises quietly. William had followed that rule to perfection. But behind closed doors, the man we see on state occasions, smiling politely, was now a strategist laying the groundwork for a battle no one outside those walls could anticipate. Audience, think about this. How many times have we criticized William for being boring or reserved? How many times have we underestimated him? History shows that the quiet ones often strike the hardest. And this was about to be the ultimate example. William didn't just make a declaration. He outlined a plan. Step 1. Restrict Meghan from using any royal style in public appearances. Step 2. Communicate with legal advisors to ensure there were no loopholes. Step 3. Prepare for the inevitable backlash, because make no mistake, Meghan would respond, and Harry would follow. The aides, ever loyal yet nervous, asked the obvious questions. Could this be done unilaterally? Was the king fully on board? What about Parliament? Could this backfire publicly? William's answer was steady, almost cold. I don't ask. I decide. It was a phrase that carried the weight of authority. Not arrogance, but certainty. The kind of certainty born from years of seeing threats to the crown, knowing that hesitation can be more dangerous than action. Every pause, every delay, every compromise invites vulnerability. William had decided there was no room for compromise anymore. And then came the irony that would sting palace insiders. While William acted decisively, Charles, the king, remained cautious. Charles had spent decades navigating public perception, attempting to avoid the appearance of family conflict. But William understood something Charles perhaps did not. Time was fleeting, and the throne waited for no man's indecision. If the future king didn't act now, the opportunity might slip away, leaving Meghan's influence unchallenged. Here's a surprising twist. Reports from inside the palace suggest that William's decision wasn't just strategic, it was deeply personal. Observers note that he had reached a point of frustration not with Meghan herself, but with the principle she represented. She symbolized a challenge to his authority, a living reminder that royal titles could be manipulated, commercialized, and politicized. And for William, that threat to the monarchy, to the very order he was destined to inherit, was intolerable. The conversation turned to Harry. Sources indicate that William didn't simply consider Meghan in isolation. He considered the ripple effect, the brother he once trusted, the sibling he had grown up alongside, now potentially rallying against him in the public eye. Every move William made had to account for Harry's reaction, every possible public statement, every social media post. This was a chess game on a scale few could comprehend. Audience, ask yourself this. If you were in William's shoes, balancing personal loyalty with the weight of history, could you make a decision like this? Could you draw a line so sharp it threatens to divide your family forever? William's aides later admitted the tension in that room was palpable. One whispered that you could feel the air change, thick with anticipation, charged with the knowledge that history was being shaped in real time. Every phrase William spoke seemed to echo beyond the walls. Every nod of an assistant felt like confirmation that the line had been drawn. And yet, despite the certainty, William knew the public reaction would be messy. Meghan, after all, had cultivated a global platform. Hollywood would cheer her resilience. Social media would ignite with hashtags and opinions. Public sentiment, unpredictable and volatile, could turn this move into a PR nightmare. But William calculated the risk. He understood that true leadership sometimes requires enduring temporary chaos to preserve long-term order. Then came the final act in that room. William stood, the weight of generations on his shoulders. He glanced at his aides, not with warmth, but with resolve. Make sure this is communicated properly. No leaks. No mistakes. This is final. The words hung in the air like a sword suspended over history. But here's the twist. Even as William executed his plan with precision, Meghan was already preparing her countermove. Sources indicate she had quietly consulted advisors, legal teams, and PR experts, anticipating the moment William would strike. The tension between preparation and reaction, between action and counteraction, would define the months to come. And that, dear audience, is where the cliffhanger lies. Behind closed doors, decisions were being made. But the world outside had no idea that a storm was brewing. A storm that would not just test Meghan, but Harry, William, Charles, and the very future of the monarchy. Because what comes next isn't just a policy change. It's a confrontation, a showdown, a family conflict made public. And the next revelation? It would shock the palace, the public, and everyone who thought they understood the royal family. What exactly is in a royal title? More than just letters. More than prestige. More than a name stitched onto an envelope or whispered at a gala. A title is power, influence, authority, legacy. And Prince William, the future king, just decided that Meghan Markle would no longer wield that power. Let's start with the basics. Duchess of Sussex, HRH, Her Royal Highness. Words that carry centuries of history, connecting the bearer to lineage, protocol, and global recognition. To the public, it's glamour, a red carpet aura. For the monarchy, it's authority, symbolism, and a legal designation that cannot be handed out lightly. Lose it, and you're not just a duchess. You're someone who has been removed from the family's inner circle, stripped of the crown's seal. William knew this, and that's why his decision wasn't just symbolic. It was strategic. Every time Meghan appeared at a charitable event, her title whispered legitimacy. Every time she signed off a deal with Duchess of Sussex, she attached royal credibility to her name. For William, that was exploitation, subtle, polished, dangerous. And here's the irony. Meghan herself had often claimed titles didn't matter, that they were mere trappings, irrelevant to her identity. But actions speak louder than words. She had maintained the Duchess of Sussex brand across ventures, partnerships, and media appearances. She leveraged that title like a currency, and William saw it. He had waited, watched, and tolerated it, but only to a point. Think about the psychology here. To William, the monarchy is an institution that demands respect. It operates on centuries of precedent, unspoken rules, and carefully measured public perception. When someone abuses that system, even indirectly, it's not just an insult. It's a threat. And Meghan's continued use of her title, in William's eyes, wasn't just a personal affront. It was a destabilizing act. Now, consider the logistics of title revocation. This isn't as simple as declaring, you're no longer a duchess. There are formal procedures, legal steps, communications to the public, and potential fallout with government bodies and advisors. William didn't flinch. He understood the complexities. He weighed the consequences. And then, with calculated precision, he decided to proceed. This is where the drama intensifies. Stripping Meghan of her titles is not merely administrative. It's a declaration of authority. It signals that William, as heir, has both the right and the resolve to protect the crown, even if it means alienating family. Every royal aide, every palace insider, every loyalist watching knows that this is a line that cannot be crossed lightly. And yet, the public rarely understands the weight of such a decision. Social media and tabloids reduce it to a scandalous headline. But behind those walls, it's a tactical maneuver, a chess game spanning years of careful observation. William has anticipated every counter, every leak, every attempt to spin the narrative. And Meghan, as expected, is not passive. Let's pause and ask, why does this matter now? Why hasn't this happened already, given Meghan's high-profile ventures and constant public appearances? Timing, as always in royal affairs, is everything. William didn't act when Oprah's interview aired. He didn't strike when Harry published his memoir. He waited. Why? Because he needed the right moment. The moment where his authority as heir would be undeniable, where delay would no longer serve the monarchy, and where decisive action could protect the institution rather than inflame it. And here's where the emotional stakes deepen. This isn't just a legal maneuver. It's a personal confrontation. By targeting Meghan's titles, William is sending a message. Boundaries exist, and crossing them has consequences. But it's also about signaling to Harry. A warning, subtle yet clear, the crown is not negotiable. Blood ties do not override duty. Imagine Harry hearing this. The letters arriving at his American residence. The aides delivering William's message with a tone of inevitability. The fury, the betrayal, and Meghan, caught between defiance and survival, already planning her countermoves. The palace walls, silent witnesses to decades of history, now held tension so thick it could be cut with a knife. But William wasn't reckless. He wasn't acting out of anger. Every step was deliberate. He consulted legal advisors, private communications teams, and senior courtiers. He mapped out possible media responses. He considered public perception, both in the UK and internationally. He knew the backlash would come, but he also knew the long-term cost of inaction would be far worse. And let's not forget the symbolism. Stripping a title is not just removing a name. It is stripping legitimacy, recognition, access, representation. Meghan's ability to act as a royal ambassador, to engage in global philanthropy under the Sussex brand, would be effectively halted. And for William, this was a protective measure for the monarchy, for his future reign, and for the perception of the crown as an institution untouchable by personal vendettas. Here's a twist most don't realize. William's strategy wasn't just reactive. It was preemptive. By acting decisively, he forces Meghan's hand. She must respond publicly, legally, or not at all. Any delay or hesitation gives him more leverage. This is not just a title war. It's a battle of narratives, power, and control over history itself. Audience, imagine the tension in the palace corridors. Every whisper, every glance, every muted conversation carries the weight of an unfolding storm. Courtiers know that once a title is stripped, the precedent is set. Future heirs, future generations, all watch and learn. This isn't just about Meghan. This is about the institution, its legacy, and the unspoken rules that govern royal life. And what about the international stage? The US, where Meghan and Harry reside, is watching. Hollywood is watching. Social media is exploding. Every outlet is ready to report, dissect, and sensationalize. William knows this. He calculated it. But he also understands that strength is sometimes measured not by popularity, but by the courage to act when necessary. Here's the human element we can't ignore: the pain, the heartbreak. William's decision is not devoid of emotion. It carries echoes of family loyalty, frustration, and protective instincts. It's a cold move, yes, but one born from years of witnessing what happens when titles are misused, when boundaries are ignored, when the institution is threatened. And Meghan? She is already planning her response, already mobilizing her advisors, already preparing the public for a narrative that will frame William as harsh, inflexible, even cruel. The tension is palpable. The chessboard is set. The pieces are moving. But here's the cliffhanger. While William has made his move, the real battle is only beginning. Titles can be stripped. Names can be erased. But the story doesn't end there. How does someone respond when the future King of England decides to cut you out of history? When the power behind centuries of monarchy comes down like a hammer and declares that your title, the symbol of your connection, your legitimacy, your influence, no longer belongs to you? That's exactly the position Meghan Markle found herself in when William made his move. At first, silence. Meghan didn't immediately fire off statements or hit social media. She is strategic, calculated. Public displays of emotion, not her style. But behind closed doors, her reaction was intense, private, and lethal in planning. Sources say she paced rooms in her Los Angeles home, calling advisors, legal teams, and media consultants. Every word of William's declaration was analyzed, every possible angle considered. She was already thinking 2 steps ahead. And here's the contradiction that fascinates people. Meghan had publicly claimed she didn't care about titles, that they didn't define her. But when stripped of her duchess status, when denied the ability to leverage royal prestige, her reaction told a different story. Actions speak louder than words, and suddenly, her carefully curated independence collided with a reality she could not ignore. The first step? Contain the narrative. Meghan needed to control how the story would be reported globally. She knew the tabloids would paint William as ruthless, Harry as protective, and herself as the victim. Social media would explode with opinions, memes, and hashtags. This wasn't just about titles anymore. This was about reputation, influence, and power. Meghan had to strike carefully, ensuring that every public response reinforced her image while subtly undermining William's authority. And then there's Harry. Sources indicate that Meghan's first instinct was to call him immediately. He, of course, reacted with outrage. How could he do this without consulting us? One insider quoted Harry saying, "This is over the line. Completely over the line." But Meghan, as always, kept him calm, strategic. She didn't want Harry to act rashly. She wanted a coordinated response. And in her mind, every delay, every misstep, could cost them the narrative. Meghan's legal team moved quickly. They explored every angle. Could William legally prevent her from using her title? Were there loopholes in royal protocol or UK law? How would public opinion influence the crown's next move? Every avenue was examined, every possible outcome charted. It wasn't just reaction. It was calculated warfare, using the tools of public relations, law, and influence. Think about the emotional dimension here. Meghan, in the US, thousands of miles from the palace, suddenly faced a reality she had long avoided. A title she had assumed she could wield at will was being taken away. She had leveraged her royal connection for media deals, speeches, and global influence. And now, William had put an end to it. It's a blow not just to her image, but to her sense of control. And yet, in true Meghan fashion, she didn't panic. She started planning. A counter-narrative. A series of public appearances subtly highlighting her independence. Social media carefully managed to maintain her mystique and influence without overtly referencing the royal titles. Every move was designed to signal, I am still Meghan. I am still influential. I am still untouchable, even without the Duchess designation. But here's where it gets dramatic. Sources suggest Meghan also began reaching out to global media contacts, planting stories, and hinting at a broader family conflict. Not sensationalized gossip, but strategic leaks designed to ensure that William's move would be interpreted as cold, calculated, even cruel. In other words, the first battle lines of a public relations war were being drawn. Now, consider the stakes. For Meghan, losing the title isn't just a personal blow. It's professional. Every venture, every media deal, every speaking engagement leveraged the implicit credibility of her royal association. Lose the title, and some doors may close. Some opportunities may shrink. And she knows it. That's why her response is deliberate, precise, and multi-layered. The palace, meanwhile, is watching with tension. Every aide knows this is not just a legal or administrative problem. This is a public spectacle in the making. William's move may have been decisive, but Meghan's countermove could reshape the narrative entirely. The monarchy is about image, perception, and optics. Lose the narrative, and even the strongest action can backfire. And here's the twist. Meghan's response is not just reactive. It's proactive. Insiders indicate she's exploring ways to reinforce her brand independently while subtly reminding the world of her royal ties. Interviews, social appearances, social media engagement, all carefully timed to maintain influence and control. She understands that the battle isn't just about titles, it's about perception. Influence is the real prize. And Harry? He's not sitting idly by. Reports suggest he's coordinating with Meghan, strategizing press releases, scheduling appearances, and preparing public statements that signal support while walking the fine line of diplomacy. The Sussexes are presenting a united front, a narrative of resilience in the face of royal aggression. But let's be honest, this isn't just about strategy. It's personal, emotional. Meghan feels betrayed. Harry feels protective. William feels righteous. And the monarchy? The institution caught in the crossfire, trying to maintain dignity, authority, and continuity in a storm that no one could have predicted. And here's the cliffhanger. While Meghan and Harry plot their public countermeasures, William is already considering the next move. This isn't the end of the confrontation. Stripping a title is just the beginning of a war that will test family bonds, public opinion, and the limits of royal authority. What happens inside the walls of the palace when a decision of this magnitude lands? The one that could reshape the monarchy forever? When William, the future king, decides to strip Meghan Markle of her titles, the ripple effect isn't just external, it's seismic inside. Palace aides, advisors, and courtiers have spent decades mastering discretion. Whispered conversations in drawing rooms, carefully drafted letters, leaked statements only when absolutely necessary. Protocol and tradition are their shields. But William's move broke the rhythm of everything they knew. The palace had never witnessed a decision this decisive, this direct, from a future monarch against a family member still living. Insiders recall the tension. Meetings convened at odd hours. Private chambers buzzing with murmurs of uncertainty. Some aides were caught off guard, believing Charles, the reigning king, would intervene or negotiate first. But William had made the call. And in royal circles, once the heir acts, inertia is rarely an option. So what exactly did the palace do? First, they assessed the legal and procedural aspects. Can a title be revoked unilaterally? What does the king say? What constitutional or parliamentary oversight exists? Lawyers were summoned. Protocol officers drafted potential communications. The objective was clear: implement William's decision while minimizing public damage. But minimizing damage in today's world, where every leak, every rumor, every viral headline spreads in seconds, is nearly impossible. And here's the human angle. Many palace staffers were emotionally torn. Some admired William's decisiveness. Others feared the familial fallout, worried that the move could splinter relationships irreparably. A courtier was quoted as saying, "We've always been trained to manage appearances, not orchestrate battles within the family. This is unprecedented." Meanwhile, Charles, the king, found himself in a difficult position. Loyal to tradition, careful in public perception, Yet needing to support his heir, he watched the situation unfold with caution. Reports suggest he privately warned William about the public fallout, urging prudence. But William, resolute, refused to waver. In his mind, protecting the institution outweighed the temporary discomfort of familial discord. The corridors of Buckingham Palace became a hive of activity. Advisors debated every possible scenario. Media strategy teams considered messaging, timing, and narrative control. Security protocols were reviewed, not for physical threats, but for potential media breaches. Every whisper could become a headline, every email a viral controversy. And the tension wasn't only administrative. It was emotional. Staffers who had grown close to the Sussexes felt torn. Meghan had formed bonds with certain members of the household. Now, those ties were strained. Conversations that once felt routine were now charged with fear of taking sides. Loyalty, a cornerstone of palace life, became a precarious balancing act. But William's strategy was meticulous. Every step was pre-planned. Every move calculated. He understood the palace dynamics better than anyone. He knew who to brief first, who could be trusted, and who might leak information to the press. His precision was surgical, leaving no room for missteps. And then there's the optics. While the palace aimed to maintain calm publicly, internally, staffers were already anticipating the headlines. Newspapers would depict William as strict, even ruthless. Meghan's team would frame her as resilient and unfairly targeted. Social media would erupt. Memes, commentary, opinion columns, all feeding a public narrative beyond the monarchy's control. The palace's challenge was to implement strategy while managing perception, a delicate dance that demanded perfect timing and absolute discretion. The palace also had to consider the international ramifications. Royal titles hold symbolic power worldwide. Diplomats, foreign royals, and international media closely monitor every move. Stripping a title isn't just a personal decision. It sends ripples across continents, influencing relationships, invitations, and global perception of the crown. William understood this fully. This was not an impulsive act. It was a calculated move to assert authority and maintain the monarchy's reputation internationally. And yet, even with preparation, tension soared. Meetings stretched late into the night. Advisors debated how much of the story should be controlled internally versus allowed to leak strategically. The risk was immense. One misstep could turn a protective maneuver into a PR disaster. Every step required precision, every word carefully weighed. Then there's the emotional element. Staffers described feeling a mixture of awe and fear. Awe at William's decisive leadership. Fear at the potential consequences, family rifts, public backlash, media storms. One aide reportedly whispered, "We're witnessing history, but I'm not sure if it's going to end well for anyone." And that's the contradiction that defines this chapter. William is the decisive, strong figure we expected him to be, but in asserting control, he risks alienating the very people who help maintain the monarchy's stability. Every action strengthens his authority, yet simultaneously heightens the emotional stakes inside the palace. Audience, consider this. How many times have we criticized William for being cautious or overly measured? Here, in the heat of the moment, he shows a side that few outside the inner circles have ever seen. Decisive, unflinching, ruthless if necessary. But with power comes consequence. The palace, the public, and the family itself are all watching. And in a world where every move is magnified, William's choice could either solidify his legacy or ignite a scandal the monarchy cannot contain. And here's where the cliffhanger comes in. While the palace reacts behind closed doors, Meghan and Harry are not idle. They are preparing a public counter-narrative, one designed to challenge William's authority and redefine public perception. The next move in this high-stakes chess game is already being plotted, and it promises to shock not only the palace but the entire world. When you think about the royal family, you might picture ceremony, protocol, and carefully choreographed public appearances. But behind the polished facade, battles are waged in strategy rooms, over secure lines, and across private communications channels. After William's decision to strip Meghan of her titles, one thing became clear: Harry and Meghan would not take this quietly. The Sussexes' first instinct was coordination. Harry, still reeling from the news, understood the stakes immediately. This wasn't just about Meghan's personal status or branding. This was a public assertion of control by William, a move that could paint them as the rebels of the monarchy yet again. Harry, protective and strategic, knew they had to respond swiftly, deliberately, and in a way that maintained their image globally. Their war room was not a physical space. In Los Angeles, it consisted of secure video calls, private chats with lawyers, media consultants, and PR strategists. Every word was scrutinized, every angle considered. Meghan's team was already drafting statements, positioning her as independent yet wronged, subtle yet assertive. Harry's role was to amplify and protect, ensuring that the story would reflect their unity rather than division. And let's pause for a moment to consider the psychological dynamics. Harry had always been more impulsive, emotional, and reactive. Meghan, by contrast, is calculated, strategic, and media-savvy. Together, they are a powerful force. Where Harry wants to confront, Meghan plans. Where Harry wants to strike immediately, Meghan designs. In this crisis, those complementary traits became their greatest asset. One of the first strategies involved social media. Carefully timed posts, subtle hints, and strategic appearances all served a purpose: to reinforce Meghan's autonomy while reminding the public of her royal connections. The Sussexes knew that perception is reality, and in an era of instant media, controlling that perception is as crucial as any legal maneuver. But the legal angle was equally critical. Meghan's team pored over statutes, precedents, and the fine print of royal protocol. Could William legally prevent her from using her title internationally? What about commercial ventures that already leveraged Duchess of Sussex? Could she argue for continued use under branding laws? Every detail mattered. Every delay could weaken their position. Every misstep could give William the upper hand. And then there's the human drama. Sources suggest that private conversations between Harry and Meghan were intense. Frustration, anger, and even moments of doubt crept into the discussions. "It feels like they're trying to erase us," Meghan reportedly said in one call. Harry, visibly tense, responded, "They can try, but we won't let them dictate our story." This raw emotion, kept away from the public eye, reveals the human stakes behind the headlines. Their strategy also included public appearances. Every event, interview, and media engagement had to be carefully timed and scripted to send subtle signals: unity, strength, and resilience. The Sussexes understood that even a casual comment could become a headline. Every smile, every gesture, every phrase was measured for maximum impact. And here's where it gets fascinating. The Sussexes' plan wasn't just reactive. They were thinking long-term. Meghan's loss of title could become a story of empowerment, a narrative where she is independent, resilient, and unshackled by traditional constraints. Harry, ever protective, would frame their unity as a family under attack, humanizing them and appealing to global audiences. But there's a twist. William is not passive. While Harry and Meghan strategize, William is already anticipating their counter-moves. Advisors in the palace were reportedly preparing statements, calculating public reaction, and even planning discreet channels to communicate directly with journalists. This is no longer a simple family feud. It's a chess game with moves and counter-moves, strategy and counter-strategy. Audience, think about the stakes here. This isn't just about titles or image. This is about influence, perception, legacy, William's authority versus Harry and Meghan's narrative. Every step, every word, every appearance has the potential to tip public opinion, shape media coverage, and ultimately affect the monarchy's global standing. And while we often see Meghan and Harry portrayed as reactive figures, the reality is far different. Their team is methodical, analytical, and anticipatory. Every leak, every statement, every social media post is part of a larger strategy. And the palace knows it. Every aide, every courtier, every royal insider understands that this countermove could define the next chapter of the monarchy. But here's the cliffhanger. While Harry and Meghan plot, William is not sitting idle. He's already planning his next move, the one that could either solidify his authority or provoke a global backlash unlike anything the monarchy has seen. And when that move lands, it won't just affect titles. It will affect relationships, reputation, and the very perception of the royal family worldwide. When William stripped Meghan Markle of her titles, the story didn't stay behind palace walls. No, in today's world, nothing stays hidden for long. Social media lit up like a fuse, tabloids across the globe scrambled, and every news outlet rushed to dissect, analyze, and speculate. It was the kind of media storm the monarchy rarely experiences, a perfect blend of scandal, family drama, and global curiosity. The first headlines were immediate. When it comes to stripping royal titles, it isn't as simple as saying the words out loud. There are rules, laws, precedents, and advisors who must be consulted. And in this case, William didn't just act on impulse. He had a legal strategy running parallel to the palace communications effort. The first step? Understand the parameters. Royal titles, especially those like Duchess of Sussex and the style Her Royal Highness, are not just ceremonial. They are enshrined in letters patent issued by the monarch, and their use is governed by centuries of tradition. Legal experts within the palace had to examine the exact authority William held as heir apparent and the potential influence of the king himself. Could this decision be executed swiftly, or would it require formal steps, parliamentary approval, or at least careful consultation with legal advisors? Insiders reveal that lawyers and advisors spent hours poring over historical examples. How had titles been revoked before, if at all? What precedent existed for a family member challenging or defying the removal of a royal style? The answer was complex. There were very few examples, and most involved political maneuvering rather than familial confrontation. This meant William and his team were navigating largely uncharted territory, balancing the need for decisive action against potential legal loopholes Meghan could exploit. Meanwhile, Meghan's legal team was working furiously. While William focused on formal authority and precedent, Meghan's advisors considered every possible counter. Could she continue to use the title abroad? Could she claim infringement of rights if William attempted to prevent commercial use of her Duchess of Sussex branding? Could media appearances or speaking engagements under her name be challenged legally? Each potential move had a risk, and her team was carefully calculating each angle. And here's where the tension intensifies. The law is not just about what is written on paper. It's about interpretation, influence, and the court of public opinion. William's lawyers had to ensure that every legal step would not only be enforceable, but also defensible in public debate. The palace could survive a controversial action, but a failed legal challenge could destroy credibility, trust, and authority. The legal conversations extended into diplomacy. Royal protocol isn't just domestic. International relations play a subtle, yet critical role. Stripping a title affects recognition, invites scrutiny from foreign governments, and could even influence ceremonial precedents. Every advisor had to weigh these implications, knowing that one misstep could escalate the dispute beyond Britain's borders. In parallel, Meghan's counsel began preparing contingency strategies. If William's action succeeded legally but failed publicly, they would pivot, emphasizing perceived injustice and the human story behind the royal decision. Interviews, press statements, and curated leaks were all considered part of a broader legal strategy, one where public opinion could serve as leverage. And then there's the timing. Legal maneuvers are not instantaneous. William's team had to anticipate leaks, anticipate media attention, and ensure that legal formalities aligned with communication strategies. Meanwhile, Meghan's team worked to prepare responses before decisions were publicly executed. Every hour mattered. Every message, every memo, every advisory note carried immense weight. Think about the personal stakes. Titles are not just about status. They confer privileges, recognition, and access. Being stripped of them impacts everything from public engagements to charitable influence. For Meghan, it was a direct challenge to her ability to navigate the global stage. For William, it was a defensive measure, a way to assert authority, protect the monarchy, and enforce boundaries. Audience, consider the complexity. This isn't just family drama. This is an intersection of law, tradition, media strategy, and personal emotion. Each move affects not only the individuals involved, but the global perception of the monarchy. Every decision is magnified under scrutiny. Every misstep could cascade into a scandal of unprecedented scale. But here's the twist. The legal strategies are only half the story. While both sides meticulously plan, unexpected elements, leaks, sympathetic insiders, and public opinion can change the trajectory at any moment. No legal argument exists in a vacuum. And that's where the real drama unfolds. The cliffhanger? While legal teams debate strategy and counsel their clients, an unforeseen leak from inside the palace is about to surface, one that could undermine William's authority, empower Meghan, and shift public perception in ways no one anticipated. The next chapter will reveal the secret that shakes the palace to its core. Every empire has its whispers. Every institution has its cracks. And the British monarchy, despite centuries of secrecy and control, is no exception. After William's decisive move to strip Meghan Markle of her titles, a leak surfaced, one that threatened to unravel the careful strategy behind his decision. It began innocuously enough. A trusted aide, someone long loyal to the crown, passed information to a journalist. The details were subtle at first, hints of internal disagreement, tension in private meetings, and strategic debates over the timing of William's announcement. But even small leaks like this are combustible. In the age of instant media, every whisper can ignite into a global storm. The story that emerged painted a picture far different from the controlled narrative William had hoped to project. Suddenly, headlines suggested not just a firm decision by the heir, but internal palace dissent. Some aides were allegedly sympathetic to Meghan. Others questioned the harshness of the move. Public perception, long guided by tradition and authority, was now being shaped by rumors, opinions, and half-confirmed details. What made this leak particularly dangerous was the timing. It coincided with Meghan and Harry's first public response strategy. Social media amplified the story. Supporters of Meghan framed the leak as evidence of palace instability, a sign that William's decision was not universally accepted even within the royal household. The narrative was shifting, subtly but significantly, in favor of the Sussexes. Inside the palace, tension reached unprecedented levels. Advisors scrambled to contain the fallout. Legal and communications teams met in emergency sessions, debating whether to issue clarifying statements or let the narrative settle. Every decision had risks. A statement could confirm sensitive details, silence could be interpreted as weakness, and delay could allow Meghan's team to dominate the conversation. And here's the human element. The aides who leaked the information weren't malicious. Many were frustrated by the coldness and rigidity of the decision. Others were concerned about long-term consequences for the monarchy's public image. In their minds, sharing information, carefully, selectively, was a way to influence outcomes, perhaps even protect the institution from what they saw as a potentially explosive confrontation. Meanwhile, Meghan and Harry were quick to capitalize. The leak, intentionally or not, gave them an opportunity to frame their story. Subtle mentions in interviews, hints in social media posts, and carefully worded statements painted William's decision as strict and authoritarian. They presented themselves as measured, principled, and wrongly targeted. Public sympathy surged. Every news cycle reinforced the narrative. William, aware of the growing storm, remained resolute. He did not react impulsively. Instead, he reinforced his legal and communications teams, ensuring that each public step was calculated, precise, and aligned with his long-term objective: protect the monarchy, assert authority, and maintain credibility. But even the most meticulous planning cannot fully anticipate the impact of an internal leak amplified globally. Consider the emotional dimension. William, in his private chambers, must have felt frustration, perhaps even betrayal. A decision intended to safeguard the institution was now subject to interpretation, opinion, and potential misrepresentation. Meanwhile, Meghan and Harry, thousands of miles away, watched the leak unfold, adjusting their strategy in real time. It was a battle not just of power, but of perception, and the palace was losing control of the narrative. Audience, ask yourself, how often do we see institutions, even centuries-old ones, struggle to contain information in the digital age? How fragile are structures built on protocol when every whisper can become a headline? This isn't just a royal story. It's a modern cautionary tale about influence, control, and the power of information. And here's the cliffhanger. While the palace scrambles to respond and Meghan leverages the leak for maximum advantage, an even more shocking revelation is about to surface. One that threatens not only titles and reputation, but exposes a secret from within the royal family itself. The next move will escalate the conflict to a level no one saw coming. When a story like this breaks, it doesn't just stay in the UK. The world is watching. And after William's bold move and the subsequent palace leak, the global reaction was immediate, intense, and entirely unpredictable. News outlets across Europe, North America, and Asia picked up the story. Headlines splashed across websites, TV screens, and social media feeds. Prince William blocks Meghan from using royal titles. Palace tension revealed read one. Another screamed, Duchess of Sussex stripped of status, royal family at war. The narrative was no longer contained. It had gone viral, with millions of eyes scrutinizing every development. Public opinion divided almost instantly. On one side, supporters of William praised his decisiveness, leadership, and commitment to the monarchy. Finally, some wrote, someone is protecting the crown from exploitation. On the other side, Meghan's supporters rallied behind her, framing the stripping of titles as unjust, cold, and antiquated. She's a modern woman fighting an outdated system, tweets proclaimed. Social media became a battlefield of hashtags, opinions, and viral debates. And then came the commentary. Political analysts, historians, and royal correspondents weighed in. Some praised William for upholding centuries of protocol. Others warned that alienating a high-profile family member could damage the monarchy's image irreparably. This isn't just family drama, said one analyst. It's a PR crisis, and it's global. Meanwhile, the Sussexes' team capitalized on the attention. Meghan made public appearances carefully designed to emphasize her independence, resilience, and philanthropic work. Harry conducted interviews, subtly framing the story as a principled stand against a rigid system. Each move was calculated to reinforce public perception that Meghan was being wronged while demonstrating strength and unity. The international media was relentless. Every detail, every nuance, every gesture became a headline. What Meghan wore to an event, how Harry smiled in an interview. Even minor interactions between the Sussexes were analyzed and dissected. The story evolved from titles and protocol into a narrative about family, power, loyalty, and perception. Consider the human factor. Public reaction is unpredictable. Some people sympathized with William, admiring the discipline and duty he displayed. Others condemned him, arguing that stripping a title over perceived misuse was harsh, unnecessary, or even cruel. The monarchy, an institution built on centuries of tradition, was suddenly subjected to the unfiltered judgment of a global audience with social media as its loudspeaker. And it wasn't just the media. Politicians, celebrities, and influencers joined the conversation. Each comment, each opinion, amplified the stakes. Every endorsement of Meghan or William became a piece of the global narrative puzzle. The monarchy, once insulated, was now operating under unprecedented scrutiny. Even within the UK, public opinion shifted daily. Polls and surveys indicated that while some admired William's decisiveness, others questioned whether the move was politically wise or emotionally considerate. Citizens debated the meaning of titles, royal authority, and family loyalty in an era when the monarchy's relevance was constantly evolving. Yet, William remained focused. Behind the public storm, the palace reinforced its legal and communication strategy. Advisors crafted talking points, planned media briefings, and coordinated with international embassies. Every reaction, from headlines to social media posts, was carefully monitored, ensuring that the crown maintained authority even as the narrative shifted in real time. And Meghan? She thrived in the global spotlight. Carefully curated interviews, social media campaigns, and public appearances reinforced the narrative that she was independent, principled, and resilient. Every positive public interaction strengthened her position, giving her leverage not only in perception but also in potential legal and commercial matters. Audience, think about this. How often does family conflict escalate into a global spectacle? How do personal decisions ripple across continents, influencing perception, media narratives, and political commentary? This isn't just a royal dispute. It's a case study in influence, power, and the intersection of personal and institutional stakes. And here's the cliffhanger. As the world debates, as the media frenzy grows, and as public opinion polarizes, an unexpected ally emerges, someone within the palace, someone long considered neutral, who decides to take a stand. Their involvement will change everything, tipping the balance of power and intensifying the conflict in ways no one could anticipate. In every conflict, there comes a moment when the unexpected shifts everything. And in the royal drama unfolding between William and Meghan Markle, that moment arrived in the form of an unexpected ally. Someone inside the palace long considered neutral, someone whose silence had been assumed, someone whose influence was underestimated. Sources reveal that this ally had observed William's move with concern. While many staffers were loyal and some openly supportive of Meghan, this individual held a position of quiet authority, a voice respected within the inner workings of the monarchy. Their decision to act would tip the delicate balance of power in ways no one could have foreseen. The first sign of change was subtle. Briefings that were once strictly controlled began leaking information selectively. Statements that had been carefully worded now carried nuance, suggesting that not all palace insiders were in agreement. Advisors noticed unusual questions in meetings, hints that certain perspectives were being highlighted to the media through unofficial channels. The ripple effect was immediate. The narrative began to shift, subtly empowering Meghan while challenging William's authority. But why would this ally act? Sources suggest a combination of personal conviction and strategic calculation. They were concerned about the public perception of the monarchy, about family unity, and about the long-term implications of alienating high-profile family members. And perhaps, in a calculated move, they recognized the power of the Sussexes' media presence and the risk of allowing the narrative to be dominated by a single perspective. The allies' involvement added a layer of complexity. Every move by Meghan and Harry was now subtly reinforced, while every palace strategy faced an internal counterbalance. The power dynamics shifted quietly but decisively. Where once William's team had near total control over internal communications, now they faced resistance from within, forcing them to reconsider tactics and recalibrate messaging. And this isn't just about strategy. Emotion played a significant role. Some palace staffers reportedly felt conflicted, caught between loyalty to William and the desire to maintain fairness or protect the monarchy's global image. The allies' decision to intervene gave voice to those concerns, creating tension, debate, and, ultimately, action that would reverberate through the palace hierarchy. Meanwhile, Meghan and Harry were quick to notice. Subtle shifts in media coverage and palace behavior indicated that something significant had changed internally. Their strategists, already monitoring every leak and subtle message, recognized the opportunity. The allies' actions could be leveraged to reinforce Meghan's narrative of resilience and independence while putting William on the defensive. The ripple effects extended further. Advisors who had once been confident in William's authority now faced uncertainty. Every planned communication, every legal maneuver, and every public statement had to be reconsidered. The palace, long structured around hierarchy and protocol, suddenly found itself navigating an unpredictable internal landscape, where even well-laid plans could be disrupted by the actions of a single influential figure. And the emotional stakes were enormous. William, known for his decisiveness, now faced the reality that his unilateral move was not absolute. The allies' intervention forced him to confront both the limitations of his authority and the unpredictable power of narrative. Meghan, on the other hand, gained momentum. A quiet, strategic advantage that shifted the balance in her favor without a single public confrontation. Audience, consider this. In every power struggle, the unexpected player is often the one who changes history. Loyalty, influence, and timing converge in unpredictable ways. Here, a single individual's decision altered the course of the conflict, demonstrating how even centuries-old institutions are vulnerable to human choice, emotion, and strategy. And here's the cliffhanger. With this ally now influencing events from within, Meghan and Harry see an opening to escalate their strategy. But William, aware of the shifting tides, is preparing a response that could either reassert his authority